thanking you for making this incredible miracle of a film.
Oh yeah.
How do you make a film about a rabbit hole that is everything?
Luckily, a lot of the work was done before I got involved, so I'll let Greg speak to that.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Please do.
Well, first, I would like to recognize Chad Stockfleth, a director who couldn't be here tonight because 2 days ago he had a baby with his wife. They had their first child. So, I think only that would prevent him from being here, but that's why he's not here tonight. So,
Greg and I are both meeting.
He is here in spirit.
he is here in spirit. Yeah.
Greg and I are both meeting Robert for the first time
Yes,
tonight. So
Can we hug it out?
yes.
Yes.
Please do.
Dude. Thank you for your awesome film.
Oh, thank you.
So how did you
Thank you,
get down
Lance.
the rabbit hole?
Yeah, it was. It started with Chad, of course, and you, like 12 years ago, I think.
Oh, so you mean the history of the origin story of the documentary? Actually,
Yeah.
okay. This documentary actually does have its origin there, but it goes back kind of further. Because like in the early 2000s, there were like a number of times when the Apples were on tour and when I was on tour for Marbles, my solo band, that I did interviews with young kids with like VHS tapes and stuff like that for a documentary they were making about Elephant Six, different documentaries. And so in the late, I don't know when it started, like 12 years ago or something, maybe a little more. Actually, I remember, the Apples played our first show when we went on tour for New Magnetic Wonder with songs like Energy and stuff like that. We played it in Lexington, Kentucky, and Chad came and filmed the show and multi-tracked it. Right. And then he asked me to come over to Louisville and mix the tracks in a studio. And I looked at him and I was like, this is fucking great. And I was like, he was like this young, scrappy kid with like, just like my friends and stuff. And like, he also had these awesome pro skills. And like, and I was like, you're doing the documentaries and stuff. That was his thing. And he also had been part of a collective very similar to Elephant Six in his own younger world in Kentucky. And so Chad, so I was like, dude, like you've got these great skills and stuff, and you're part of a collective like this, and there were all of these different documentaries that were being made. Why don't you try to collect them all into a collective documentary? And he was like, I never could find them. So there are other documentaries that started to be made that are out there with other footage that kids took like 20 years ago. Yeah. And so, so in any event then, but starting on that, Chad started to interview me and meet my friends and stuff. And then some years later, the second part of it that is, that I didn't really come in until the end and I didn't know existed as much was that, well, of course, so one of the film's producers, Lance, had grown up he was an Athens kid who was part of the Elephant Six, like, circle when he was in college age, and he was always there filming our friends, and nobody, like, we're not people who were trying to get, like, photographed or anything like that, but we were all artists, and Lance was an artist, and his art was that he
Lance, come here.
he was filming.
Lance
That was his eye. And so, in any event, there's all of these. So really, the documentary, although we didn't know it was going to be a documentary, and he couldn't have possibly known that these freaky kids that he was friends with are going to end up being worthy of having a documentary, which I'm still doubtful of. But I really liked it. In any event, you were filming all of this amazing footage for decades of our friends just by being friends. And so a lot of the stuff that was in this film was really beautiful footage that you have taken just from being on the ground in the scene through over decades, and that was really magical for me to see. And it was something that, I don't know, nobody else could have done that. Nobody else was there 30 years ago and on to be filming all of us, and that was a really magical thing that you did. And then Chad came in, and what Chad did was like, of course, there wasn't a documentary yet, so your footage was just your private footage.
Was making plenty of other...
No, that's what I mean, exactly. You were always doing other stuff. This was your...
We were in Athens, the sensibility among us there was much more reclusive and less attention-seeking and less like, ta-da, check me out, than other aspects of it. And so there was a sense that it was important for me. I was living with Jeff Mangum and Julian and Robbie and Laura Carter, and at different points, like Brian was kind of in, and then I took over his room. It was essential to me to document all that, and I made the film and the recording of... a thing that's called Starlight Crypt, which is Jeff kind of doing all of the material for In the Airplane Over the Sea before it was recorded with you out in Colorado. At the time, I was making documentaries and projects with Nirvana and Pavement and Sonic Youth and REM, and Kanye West and all these other sort of.
He's really fancy and legendary, BTW.
So I knew that the footage was important, but the sense for me was that I had to be protective of it. And I've made plenty of other things for people that are reclusive or don't want the material sort of out there. I did a documentary. Greg is also a musician from the music scene in Louisville, Kentucky. I made a film called Breadcrumb Trail about primarily Slint, but the other bands that were part of sort of like 80s and 90s music culture in Louisville, Kentucky. So I knew that it was essential and it was worth, documenting all this and holding on to it. And honestly, there were multiple people that would take VHS copies of things that I'd shot and be like, I'm so-and-so from Florida and I'm making a movie about Elephant Six, and
that's probably like four of the people that I liked filming for.
And so they would then take donations from Kickstarter, and I would be like, what? You can't just take my discrete footage and say that you directed it. Like that, that was like a repeating pattern in that early 2000s.
I just did that with your Nirvana film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just
joking.
It's good to sort of finally have stepped in. There's a point that Rob and Greg, who are great filmmakers and projects that you've probably seen. There's the other music documentary. There's a lot of music videos and stuff that these guys have made over the years. There came a point that we felt like it was important to tell the story and kind of take all the loose ends and partially completed things and make a proper, structured, satisfying, here are the characters, here's what they were doing that was significant, and it has an arc to it, and it builds, and it plays at a reasonable length, and has the best songs and the best photographs and the best material to sort of make this finished film. And I would say that it was in the past couple years that these guys stepped in and kind of got me to come in and turn this into the film that you saw tonight, which is different from a thing that was like
Chad's VHS film from a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was really impressive and really amazing, and the editing and stuff was really cool, and the music was really good. And I mean,
agreed.
I don't know how you got such good musicians. They were really good.
Embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. And so we're grateful that everyone has come to see this, and I'm happy that Rob was able to get this set up with Doc NYC, which is such a great festival, to present it here, and that it's also been made available to a certain number of people to watch as like a streaming iteration of it.
That's right. So if you have friends who don't live in New York or don't feel comfortable going to a movie theater yet, let them know they can rent the movie through the Doc NYC platform for the next couple of weeks.
Ooh, can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Okay, this is separate from checking out the VHS copy of the film that was available only by mail order something like 4 years ago, and where every single VHS copy was a totally different edit of the film. So this is a different one, and I just want to point out I just want to point out how cool this was, because Chad went and lived in Athens, went on tour with all of our bands, went to England with us for All Tomorrow's Parties. He lived among these people, much like Lance had done in his youth, who were not willing to be filmed or interviewed and didn't really care to talk about it. And it was to make friends with hundreds of people. Dozens of them appear in the film, but there are way more interviews and people in our collective. I mean, there's hundreds of friends who are all over the world. And it was a huge task. This young guy, he was traveling around the country constantly on his own dime, like crashing on people's floors and stuff like this for a decade to do these interviews. He took interviews of like that couldn't have been taken, like of our friend Bill. If he hadn't started then, if he had just waited 2 more years.
Oh, yeah.
It was really a huge undertaking that went on for a long time, and he won everybody over. Everybody loves Chad. He's so cool and creative. He's one of us. He is part of our collective now. And when he made the first draft of the film and put it out as a bootleg on VHS, he was like, I'm done. The film is done. Because that was the Elephant Six version of the film. And he sent out the VHS tapes, and they had like original pieces of artwork stuffed into them that like we lent him to use for the film. So if you have a copy of the VHS tape, you probably have our original artwork tucked into it. And it turned out to be this really magical thing that for me, when I saw the film coming out the first time, I was like, this is Elephant Six happening again. This is our cassettes. This is our posters. This is our scrappy collage art. And it's in VHS form. It was so magical to me. And then, like, suddenly it was like, but then at the same time, nobody can get it. And I have all of these brilliant friends, the most genius people I've ever known, these beautiful people. And the documentary is only available in a really rare format that probably only my friends own the equipment to play it back on. and so, like, a really huge thing was for Chad to bring in other filmmakers that he was friends with and that he was colleagues with to start to polish it, and it was a really interesting thing to happen, because those filmmakers themselves had made similarly awesome films and also came in with footage that nobody could have possibly known that they even had in their back pocket for their entire lives since they were like 20 years old, and like to make this be like so much different too, it was really amazing. I'm just so impressed, and I want to say, the film focuses too much on me. I didn't lead the collective, okay? Nobody led the Elephant Six. Whatever I did was the thing I did. I'm a lone wolf a little bit, so I didn't embed myself into a community. I built the community of friends that I could have, and I wanted to have that, and it was important to me because I'm a lone wolf. At the same time, I wasn't a leader of it, and there was no leader. The leader was everybody. It was the person that was in charge of the recording session on that day. The leader was the writer of the song. And that was the leader of the whole Elephant Six collective for the moment that we were recording that one song. And so I really appreciated all the nice props and stuff that I got in the film, but I have to say that they weren't warranted, and that it really was everybody, and it's not just everybody in the film. There were so many more people. There's so many more people that were part of this movement. When we were young and we were 4-tracking, I was like, there were probably like 15 or 20 other kids like us. There were, like Miles from Beulah or the Essex Green. There were other kids like us who had their own little mini collectives. Chad was in a collective like that in Kentucky, a decade later. And my thought at the time was, how can we, these lonely, scrappy, like uncool kids, reach each other before the internet? I was like, how can we, before the internet exists, reach each other? Yeah. And everybody's like, whoa, you just invented the internet. And I was like, that's why I'm so rich. So anyway, okay, backtracking. The fact is that it was something that was incredibly magical. It was something that was made entirely of friendship and love. Like somebody said in the movie, I don't know if it was me, but the fact is the ups and the downs of our social circle were the ups and the downs of our collective, and there was nothing else to the collective but our social circle. There was no material ambition. There was nothing but artistic ambition and friendship, and we still have those friendships and we still have those ambitions. And it's not just us. It's other kids our age, and it's kids younger than us, and it's you, and it's your kids that can do this cycle over and over again. We learned it from kids that were older than us. They learned it from other kids. We learned it from the baby boomers and from the 1960s. And so I guess that's all I have to say. It's not a very focused monologue.
I think you all can see
but I wanted to say that
challenge I face.
It wasn't about me, even though there was a lot of nice props at the beginning. And I also want to focus on the fact that there are a lot of people that aren't even in the film and that maybe didn't want to be. I just want to say that the rabbit hole is not complete, and there's a lot of other places to go. And
that's the challenge. That is the
film.
I love that Ruth's one question led to the entire Q&A. That's the film, because the challenge is deciding what we can fit into a 90-minute film. And speaking of all the people, there's other people here in the audience that were in Elephant Six bands, so stand up if you know who you are.
My co-founder of the Apples in Stereo, Chris Parfit, is here. Chris, would you? He's the best guitar player in the entire universe ever. And John Ferguson from the Apples in Stereo is here. And let's see who. Oh my gosh, we have Kirk Pleasant here. And who I can't see into the back of the audience.
We've got Steve Keen, who painted the Fun Trick Noisemaker album cover.
Wait.
Amy Hairston is here.
Amy Hairston is here. We've got Julia from Essex Green and Ladybug Transistor is here.
Wait.
Somewhere.
Oh my God! Hi, Julia.
Did we miss anybody? No?
Oh, and also I ran into Miles from Beulah today on the street in Brooklyn, and we hung out for a long time, and I haven't seen him for some years, and he's an incredible genius. Oh, yeah, he's such a talented person. Oh, and that's another thing that I have to say.
Well, we also have Dan Ephraim, the original executive producer of the film. Was one of the people who got this started. So thanks, everybody.
My wife, Marcy, who is extremely helpful to the producers, I'm sure.
So just to keep on answering your question, how did we decide what to focus on? I think effectively, there were so many bands, but the choice was to focus kind of on the Rustin 4 founding members, Bill, Will, Robert, and Jeff.
Well, I came on the project in 2016. after, which is only 6 years in.
You edited the VHS tape.
Yeah.
Really good job.
Oh, thanks.
It was so experimental.
Yes.
I really loved that. It was awesome
Well,
job.
it lacks Jeff Mangum's voice, but that was not.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have the wherewithal. Anyway, long
You
story.
didn't have some person who had lots of interviews.
No,
with
we
footage
had.
with him on
Okay,
hand.
well, anyway.
I gotta say, actually, like in the talking to Jeff over the years about how comfortable he would be and whether he wanted this to reveal things or not reveal things, and the sort of like wanting to share love and attention for Bill Doss and Will and the people that there is footage of, but being careful or guarded about his own, what he's putting out there in the world. We went through different iterations about whether he'd be comfortable with stuff I'd shot being used. And then Rob had a very great creative idea about going back through radio interviews and recordings that Jeff had spoken in and, been in control of what he was saying at the time, and then kind of blending that with footage to make the way that Jeff appears in the film so that you hear him speaking and his thoughts and perspective, but in a way that he's comfortable with and that we matched with footage that he was comfortable with that serves us well. And that was, I think, one of the great things that these guys, came up with as far as like a creative approach or solution that elevated the film.
I mean, it's fitting because it's his voice at the time, really.
Yeah.
So.
Probably one of the last interviews he ever did before he stopped doing press.
Yeah. And then that New Zealand, someone was recording audio of him speaking. Well, I guess just because they were recording audio, and when he talked about his experiences, and it was just so forthright. But he was okay with everything is being cleared with them. So
Yeah. So in terms of the rabbit hole, I think that was our first creative choice, was focusing on the founding three bands, and then focusing on Elf Power was like a band that already existed in Athens when they came, and then trying to put every other band we could in a way that wasn't confusing, because I think a problem with a film like this can be there's so many characters. Somebody coming into it without any background could get completely lost, which I think we hopefully have done an okay job with. You can navigate who these people are, and you really fall in love with people who I didn't really know anything about Will Cullen Hart or Bill Doss or what they looked like or what their personalities were like, even though I loved those albums at the time. I think I knew who Robert was and I knew who Jeff was, but Bill and Will were kind of a mystery to me as human beings, and I just fell in love with them so much through this film. I just wish I'd gotten to meet Bill, and I hopefully will meet Will sometime.
Will is a crazy genius that I love, and I just want to
Yeah.
meet him. Like, when I first started working on the project, it was like him and Julian just like grabbed me like personally, and like some of the earliest things I edited were like when he's dancing to, I think it's your music, in his room.
Yes, it was my college cassette recordings that I sent him
Yeah.
that didn't necessarily permit him to play on the camera, but they did actually sound pretty good, I guess.
There weren't a lot of release forms signed making this film.
No. I gave blanket permission to Chad to use anything, and I said I don't care if it's embarrassing, so it's okay.
But yeah, so he and then Julian just speaking the way he just was just so captivating for me personally.
He's really magical and
Yeah.
imaginative.
Yeah.
He's an amazing person.
At different points of his life, he's lived here in New York. Are there any of Julian's friends that were able to come out tonight to see this?
His band Chocolate USA was based here, and this is where he was based out of when Bill first joined his band.
Yeah.
Julian was the rock star to us. I mean, you have to understand, like, he picked Bill up. Bill was the rock star in our circle. He was the first person that had ever gone on tour or been in a band or anything like that, and it was pretty amazing. I mean, and then Julian's band turned into much of the Olivia Tremor Control, and Julian also formed the Neutral Milk Hotel live band. It's really he was a really important influence and important person that came into our band, and there were a lot of people from outside of the Ruston, like for instance Hillary and Jim and Chris started the Apples and Elephant Six in Denver, and we had a collective already of friends from Ruston and Denver that we were sort of like involved with. I forgot where I was going with that anecdote. Oh snap! How did I start that one off? I should have been standing up you guys.
You have 1 minute to just.
I'm passing the mic to Lance with no pre-announcement.
You do have 1 minute though.
Okay, great. I'm very happy that everyone came, and for Rob or Greg or Robert or myself, if anyone has any questions or things that they're curious about,
Or hugs.
might be yes.
Yeah, so the film is at Elephant Six Movie on all platforms. And we encourage everybody, obviously, like word of mouth is so important. Like tell your friends, email your friends, text your friends. You got to check out this movie. Hopefully it's a movie that people who don't even know.
But only if you liked it.
Yeah. If you didn't like it, don't. And, if you use Letterboxd, please like log the film, leave a review. Yeah.
You can't hate this movie.
No.
And, of course, there's an audience award that you can vote for. So please look that up.
Yes.
Yeah, I think having been a fan of this music as
Thank
a
you.
16, 17, 18-year-old at the time and vaguely knowing what the Athens scene was, like the movie for me really transports me to this place that I never got to be a part of. It's just kind of like this mystery place. And then I think also shines a light on the fact that Elephant Six wasn't just Athens. It started in a completely different state in Ruston, and everything was recorded in Denver. Yeah.
We're the same
really
age,
fun.
and we were 4-tracking in Louisville, too, at the same time, yes. Rap music that hasn't seen a lot of day, but
I'd like to. Maybe this is the next documentary.
Gas Camp, yes.
What's your DJ name, beatboxing name?
King G.
King G.
I love that. I want to thank the filmmakers so much. Thank you to Chad. Chad, thank you so much for your perseverance and for your wonderful film.
Can you say that
thank
one
you,
more time?
Thank you to Chad so much for your perseverance and your wonderful
If I
film.
say something to Chad.
Congratulations to Chad.
Good job, Chad.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Rob and Greg and Lance. Thank you so much, and thank you to the producers of the film and to all of you so much for coming. And go do some cool stuff with your friends. Make some great music, or draw some pictures, or just like relax with them for a little bit. Life is short, but we still have a lot of time to do a lot of cool stuff.
And thank you to Doc NYC very much
Thank you
for
very much.
premiering this film.
We love your film. It's a love fest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.